This episode is brought to you by Redfin. You're listening to a podcast, which means you're probably multitasking. Maybe even scrolling home listings on Redfin, saving homes without expecting to get them. But Redfin isn't just built for endless browsing. It's built to help you find and own a home. With agents who close twice as many deals, when you find the one, you've got a real shot at getting it. Get started at redfin.com. Own the dream.
It was the first time in Southern history at that time that an African American defeated a white candidate in a single-member district. Immediately after that, the General Assembly met to devise multi-member districts.
For the News and Observer, I'm Brian Murphy, your host for this special episode of Under the Dome. This is our second special edition of Under the Dome, focused on the new podcast from Serial and the New York Times called The Improvement Association, which chronicles the 2018 election fraud case in North Carolina's 9th Congressional District. When they release an episode, we'll release one too. Think of ours as a companion piece. This week, my colleague Carly Brousseau interviewed North Carolina Central professor Irving Joyner for a discussion about race and politics in Bladen County and North Carolina. The second episode of the Serial podcast focuses on the racial tension and the accusations that follow in Bladen County between white voters and the Black Bladen County Improvement Association, as well as some history of voting rights in that county. Carly, can you give us a quick preview of your conversation?
Yeah, I talked to Irving Joyner, who is, like you said, a professor at Central. He's been involved in all kinds of litigation and just other work around Black voting rights in North Carolina. So I thought he would be a perfect person to kind of put what happened in Bladen County in the context of the rest of the state and beyond that.
And if you listen to the Serial podcast, you'll hear from some white voters as well as some members of the Bladen County Improvement Association who discuss this mistrust between what's happening with the association, with the PAC, as well as the perception of what some white voters have about what the PAC is doing. Here's Carly's interview with Irving Joyner.
Thank you for joining me in this conversation. I know that you know an awful lot about the history of Black political struggle in North Carolina, so I was hoping you could put Bladen County Improvement Association, the subject of Serial's latest podcast, in context. First, would you introduce yourself to our listeners? What's been the focus of your legal work and teaching over the years?
Okay, I'm Irving Joyner, and I am a professor at North Carolina Central University School of Law. My focus in the law school has been on civil rights, race and the law, and criminal law. Those are my specialty areas, and I have engaged in a long-term involvement in political participation, voting rights, and efforts to deal with the political process in this state and other states.
Have you had any involvement with the Bladen County Improvement Association?
I have. Over the years, recent years, I have been involved with them in a number of capacities.
And help me understand the broader picture in North Carolina. Are there other groups like the Bladen County Improvement Association?
Yes, the Bladen County Improvement Association is an organization that basically work within the African American communities to advance political, social, and educational interests. This notion of forming, I guess, what is called PACs today, but Citizens Association started back around 1935 with the Durham Committee on the Affairs of Black People. And that organization served in this Jim Crow era as a go-between for African Americans who were encountering problems with the systems in that city or in that county, and they interceded on behalf of members of that community to see that justice was achieved. It was a necessary power center within the community because individuals were reluctant to confront the powers that be during those days because of widespread physical violence that would be directed toward them. So they looked for people within the community who had influence within the white community structures, whether it was business, whether it was schools, whether it was politics, medical, whatever the issue was. And so the Durham Committee on the Affairs of Black People was organized. And then in other communities around the state, they replicated what had occurred in Durham. And it was through that political participation that African Americans began to achieve some political involvement during Jim Crow. So not only did you have these informal kinds of interactions, but you also had formal efforts to register people to vote and to get them to the polls and to help them to understand who it was that were seeking public office that would support the needs and protections for the African American community. So out of that, African Americans began to develop common strategies from county to county and from city to city in dealing with the powers that be and looking at and attacking laws that were on the books to suppress the ability of African Americans to vote and participate in the political franchise.
What are some examples of those strategies?
Well, and I can kind of use the history a little bit. In 1947, Reverend Kenneth Williams in Winston-Salem was elected to the Winston-Salem City Council. It was the first time in Southern history at that time that an African American defeated a white candidate in a single member district. And immediately after that, the General Assembly met to devise multi-member districts all over the state where there were large African American concentrations to prevent that from occurring again. Through the African American pacts, which were in existence at the time, there was a concerted strategy now to continue to get African Americans out to vote, but then to simply vote for one candidate. It's called single shot voting. So that was a coordinated strategy that grew out of the thinking of these various pacts, and it was widely used across the state, and it resulted in the elections of 10, 12 African Americans to city councils, to boards of education in various counties. So it provided an opportunity for people across county lines, across city lines, to come together and develop strategy to counteract what the white community was doing to promote this notion of Jim Crow. So that's one example of how the work of these agencies played out.
How was their work received by the white community?
It was mixed. In Durham, because of the large concentration of a more educated grouping of African Americans, there were successful efforts to bridge the gap. In down east counties, it became more antagonistic, where whites saw that as an attack on them and something that they should repress by the use of either violence or the laws that were in existence at the time. So it depended on where you were located. In Raleigh, you had the Raleigh Citizens, Raleigh Wake Citizens Council, and these things are still in existence today. In Charlotte, you had a similar group. In Greensboro, Winston-Salem, you had similar groups. So the Bladen County Improvement Association is just a replica of all those things that have been present in African-American communities since the Jim Crow era.
And some of the strategies that Bladen County Improvement Association has used and has been criticized for, or at least there has been some debate about in the community, like sample ballots. Are those common strategies? Is that a common technique?
It is. Today, the Durham Committee on the Affairs of Black People will endorse candidates. The Wake Raleigh Citizens Association will endorse candidates. The same things in Greensboro, in Clinton, in Kinston, New Bern, wherever you are, there will be the African American group that will endorse candidates, and they will pass out those slates to people either on election day or immediately before election day, so that when they go to the polls, they will have some idea of who the favored people are in those elections. Of course, they can vote for whomever they want to vote for, but the recommendations that come from these PACs show what a community census is as to who ought to receive their votes, and they're very effective because typically you will have 90 to 95% of African Americans following the guidance that they receive from these various PACs around the state.
One of the things that Zoe Chase, the reporter in Serial, talks about in one of the episodes is the sample ballots and members of the Improvement Association asking for the ballots back because they had previous instances of the ballots being sort of copied and adjusted. There being some kind of sort of fake version of the sample ballot. Is that also commonplace?
Yeah, and that is why the ballots are given out, or the slate is given out on election day, when people arrive at the poll, or the night before, so that it will make it more difficult to copy that. That is less effective today than it was 15, 20 years ago, and certainly in 1945, 1950 or so. Today, you can replicate a ballot in about a half a second and get them out and distribute them around. But prior to 2000, that was not something that was readily available for people to do, but there are instances where, those ballots, both in their style, in their color, have been copied and circulated within the community, and these organizations make efforts to prevent that from occurring.
Another sort of broader question I wanted to ask you, because of your expertise, is just what voter suppression looks like and how the face of voter suppression may have changed over the years. Zoe Chase is talking with one of the Republicans in Bladen County who is talking about how, that's sort of in the past. Nobody's jumping out of the bushes at a polling place now and preventing somebody from voting. But what does voter suppression look like now? Is that the only kind of face of it?
Well, I would disagree, because even today there is intimidation at these polling places where large numbers of African Americans will show up. We still have people showing up at the polls with guns who are standing around the polls in an intimidating stance, or at least that is the perception of people who come to the poll when they see someone coming to a polling site that's armed. And if the location is one where large numbers of African Americans typically will vote, that is certainly viewed suspiciously. So that's a continuing one. So that's still going on. But you also have changing of the polling sites. You have the efforts to keep people from being able to register. The whole notion of voter ID is a voter suppression tactic. Then preventing or gerrymandering of political districts. So a whole range of different things that are in place that would either discourage people from running or discourage people from actually voting, or changing the configuration of the districts from which candidates can be voted on by the electorate. So all of those things are part of the voter suppression effort.
And are those all things that groups like Bladen County Improvement Association is working to combat, or do they focus on a smaller piece of the puzzle?
Well, all of these associations will focus on all of these tactics. And there will be communications between various groups around the state where there are efforts in the legislature to improve opportunities for people to vote, particularly African Americans. They'll join in and voice their support for those things. On the other side, if there are things going on in the legislature that that favors voter suppression, then they will join to oppose those efforts. They are readily available to engage in litigation to challenge voting suppressive efforts. They are actively involved with the Board of Elections to challenge what has occurred at the voting sites. They are present at the various polling sites to see what is going on and to record what is going on. People are assigned to these voting districts to be polling sites rather to be available for people who encounter problems, and then to report those problems back, whether it is to voter protection hotline or whether it is to challenge it with the Board of Elections when the votes are tabulated. So these organizations play a vital role in looking at the total scope of the voting process, and their members are very adamant about actually seeing what is going on and getting their people out to the polls to vote.
And what's your assessment of the state of the Black vote right now? Has there been a retrenchment in access to the polls, or are you seeing actual improvements?
Beginning in, 1990, when you look at the legislation here in the state, efforts were made to improve the opportunities for people to vote. Back in the 90s, you voted on one day. That was the second Tuesday or first Tuesday in November, and everybody had to vote on that day between the hours of 7 and 7. And if you couldn't get to the polls to vote on that day, you were out of luck. So beginning in the 90s with the administration of Dan Blue, who was Speaker of the House at the time, and Toby Fitch and Mickey Mashaw and others, they introduced a series of legislation that resulted in improved opportunities for people to register to vote, because you used to have to go to the Board of Elections between 9 and 5 in order to register. So the first thing was to improve those opportunities for people to register. And now you have a situation where you can just register just about any time you want to register. You can go on the internet and register. You have people coming to the church to get you to register. You have people at the shopping malls. Those efforts resulted from changes in the legislation in North Carolina that permitted registration to occur that way, and the development of some security to ensure that people properly registered. So you started with that in terms of registration, and then you went to early voting. And then you had voting by mail, absentee voting, because back in the 90s, 80s, you couldn't vote absentee. So a lot of the legislative efforts that was supported during that time, it sought to improve the opportunities for people to register and then to vote. So now we have 17 days of early voting. You have enlarged efforts to vote by mail, and leaving you in a situation on election day that you don't have the long lines at the polls and people having to cut out of work in order to go vote. So the improvement in these opportunities resulted in a significant increase in the number of African Americans who are registered, and then those who actually come out to vote. And that those efforts kind of increased or escalated in the early 2003, 2004, right on up to 2008 when Barack Obama ran for president in 2012, and you had robust political participation within African American communities, mainly because these new opportunities existed in the state for people to register and to vote. And then what you found was that in other states around the country, they followed what had occurred in North Carolina, because North Carolina was seen as a prototype, as a progressive prototype. So now we're where we are. Beginning in 2010, you then had efforts to cut back on all of those opportunities. And then the elimination of Souls to the Polls, for instance, which was a device developed in African American communities to allow the religious communities to take a forward step in getting their members out to register and to vote. Then now you have efforts to cut back on the number of days, the hours in the day that these early voting sites will be available for people to vote, whether they can vote on the weekends or not. And of course, the voter ID effort that is underway presently and is under litigation at this point. So there is a return to those efforts to cut back on the successes that African Americans and Latinos have had in expanding the opportunities to register and then the opportunities to actually cast the ballot. Concurrent with that is the opportunity and inspiration of racial minorities to run for office, because there's no point in running if you don't have a chance of winning. So with these increased opportunities, it is now more attractive to people to want to be candidates, where they will have an equal shot at obtaining votes that will allow them to win. And that has been successful throughout this history, beginning around 1990, where there's been a significant increase in the number of people who have been elected at the county, town, and state level into these legislative positions.
Thank you so much for taking this time to talk us through the context and give us this great history. I really appreciate it.
Okay. Well, thank you for engaging me in this conversation.
For more from our politics team, subscribe to the News and Observer at newsobserver.com/subscribe. Follow us on Twitter at Under the Dome and NC Insider, and sign up for our weekly political newsletter at newsobserver.com/newsletters. Thanks for listening.